Hello everyone and welcome back to the Fantasy Football Scout YouTube channel. In this video we've got something slightly different. We've got a Game Week 30 wildcard. So I'm basically going through the team and talking through why I would pick this individual player for each individual position. Of course, as well, this is based off my team. So I think I've got about 104 million at the moment. So if you don't quite have the money I have, I will be suggesting some potentially cheaper replacements. And also potentially I'll be suggesting some more expensive replacements, people who do have slightly more money than I do. But yeah, this is going to be the team. But I'll go through with the defence and the goalkeeper, then we'll look into the midfield, and then we'll go into the attack as well. So let's just get into it. But before we do that, of course, if you could help the channel by dropping a like, subscribe, and all that good stuff, it really helps me and really helps the Fantasy Football Scout YouTube channel and community to keep these videos going. So if you could do that, that would be absolutely fantastic. But yeah, let's get into the defence, shall we? So this is the defence and goalkeeper. In goal, I have gone with David Raya. 2 clean sheets in his last 3 games for Raya now. So he's starting to pick up the Arsenal defence. I do think that Fulham fixture does look pretty nice. Well, obviously, Fulham have a big FA Cup game this weekend too. Which obviously I think will impact their sort of importance that they will put on the sort of Arsenal game midweek, which I think will obviously should benefit Arsenal, and it obviously should lead to a clean sheet. So yeah, I do really like Raya in goal. I think at that price point as well, he is good to get into the Arsenal defence. And I've also got Gabriel. Now, this is the first player that I think if you can't quite afford Gabriel, I think a Dan Burn at 4.4 million could be sufficient. So you can go there. But for me, Gabriel, obviously, like Raya, still offers that clean sheet threat with 2 clean sheets in the last 3 games. And an Arsenal defence that we always know is really solid as well. But I also offers that attacking threat as well, which is why I would go for him. And again, you could go with Timber there if you want to be a bit cheaper. But I've gone with Gabriel. I've got Quansah, who will start on the bench for me anyway. He isn't going to start. This team will be built in a sort of in a 3-4-3. That's the formation I like. But Quansah for me at 3.9 million to get to Liverpool defence makes sense. Gvardiol still got 5 goals for the season, so the attacking returns have been there, but not quite recently. Although this Leicester game I think is a really good chance to get into some attacking returns for a few Man City assets that haven't been performing as of late. I also think obviously it's a really good chance for Leicester for Man City to pick up a clean sheet. Leicester I think have scored 2 goals. So far this year, both goals obviously coming against Spurs in their 2-1 win there. Their only win they've had for a long time. So yeah, I think this is almost a nailed clean sheet. I'd be very surprised if Leicester do score. So yeah, I think you're guaranteed defensive returns from Gvardiol and hopefully attacking returns as well. And that's what obviously you're hoping from Munoz as well, who Palace away from home recently have been unbelievable. They actually haven't conceded an away goal since the 15th of December. And in that time, Munoz has also picked up 2 attacking returns as well. So yeah, he's a fantastic asset at the moment. And obviously this Southampton game looks brilliant as well, in my opinion. Obviously, there'll be some other players from Crystal Palace to go for the rest of the draft as well. But I think, yeah, he is a really, really good option if you are on a free hit 30, which I'm not sure tons of people are, but I think there is a potential that he could do it as well. And Cresswell at 3.9 million as well, I think sort of makes sense. He does actually start for West Ham a lot, so yeah. And that Wolves game isn't too bad. But again, I don't think you'd be playing Cresswell, to be honest. Moving on to the midfield then. In midfield, we have gone for Ismaila Sarr, who has got 26 points in his last 2 games. And obviously, Southampton game. Southampton are comfortably the worst team in the league. So again, a really, really good fixture target for Crystal Palace. I've then gone with Justin Kluivert. Again, I think even though he did lack in the most recent fixture that obviously Bournemouth played, and he's still picking up the returns. I think he's got 2 returns in his last 3. Obviously on penalties as well, which I always like. And at that price point, at 6.2 million, playing against Ipswich, one of the worst defences in the league this season, just conceded 4 against Nottingham Forest, I do think he is a really good option. Jacob Murphy would be my bench player. He would be first on the bench right now with this free hit. Really do like the fixture. I think they've obviously come off a real high as well. Of Newcastle, although to be fair, Brentford have picked up, especially away from home in recent weeks. I think they've picked up maybe 3 or 4 wins away from home recently. So maybe not the best fixture in the world, which I think again warrants why he's on the bench. But yeah, I still think he's a decent option, Jacob Murphy, especially at that 5 million price point. Then I've gone with Mohamed Salah. Obviously, that Everton game isn't. I don't think it's the best fixture for Liverpool right now, but Salah, you've got to have him, I think, in a free hit. He doesn't actually get the captaincy, though. There is someone else that I think I do slightly prefer as captaincy this week, although, as I said, I can't go without Mo Salah, so he obviously makes the cut there. And then someone who's potentially, I think in a free hit, you do want a few punts in there. I think that does make sense. And one of the punts I've gone with is Savinho. I really like the fixture against Leicester. They are, as I said, one of the worst teams in the league. Ipswich and obviously Southampton as well. All really terrible. All the promoted teams have been terrible this year. But I do think, as I say, if you are going to sort of look to target certain teams, which is sort of what I've done in this game, really. I'm going to have 3 Man City players when you get onto the strikers as well. I will have 3 players as well against Southampton. I'm sort of giving a bit away there. So yeah, and obviously 1 player against Ipswich and Cliver. So 7 out of my starting 11 are all going to be targeting them, the sort of the relegated teams, which might as well already call them all the newly promoted teams if you want to be a bit more generous. But yeah, I would go with Savinho as well as a bit of a punt. He has managed to pick up 10 assists this year, only the 1 goal. But I do think if there's any game where he could haul in, this looks like the game to do that. So yeah, really like him as well. I think he is a really, really decent option. If you do want to make slightly cheaper in midfield, I think you're going to struggle. You could move down from Salah. And also the honourable mentions, if you do want to move up as well, the likes of Bruno Fernandes, I think is a really nice punt. I would have quite liked Bruno in this team. I know he's got that Forest fixture, but I always say I do like to back players who I've got sort of, who are massively on form, especially when we're picking midfielders and attackers, obviously because it's more individualistic than defence, like I talked about in one of the most recent videos I filmed. But yeah, I think Bruno is a really good option as well if you did have a bit more money. And potentially you could go to Foden as well if you did want to go there instead of Savinho. But yeah, that is where I'll go there. Anyway, that would be my midfield. There's also Eze as well, I think is a decent option too. But I just think Sarr, with them 26 points his last 2 games, a 15-pointer and an 11-pointer, I just don't think you can avoid that really. So he makes the cut. Finally, in my front 3 would be Jean-Philippe Mateta. He has been confirmed today, which I'm recording this on the Thursday, as back into the Crystal Palace lineup, which is really nice. He will be facing Fulham at the weekend, and he's back fit for that, so he's a perfect shout. And obviously, again, targeting that Southampton fixture. And as I said, Mateta as well has been unbelievable form himself recently. I think he's got something like 5 returns in his last 4 games, but that's only short term. Even before that, I think for the last 10 games, there's tons of returns in there for Mateta. I remember him getting a sort of a 13-pointer away at Manchester United away from home recently as well. Obviously, got the 2 goals there. So I think he, especially with that Southampton game and how good Palace have been away from home, they've been exemplary away from home recently. I think he's an absolutely fantastic option. So yeah, Mateta for me would make the cut definitely in this team. I think that's really important. And actually, to be fair, I think if I was picking a Game Week 30 wildcard, this would be my front 3 as well. I think this is the front 3 right now. Not only on a free hit, but also on a wildcard as well. And to be fair, I think there's a lot of crossover with the free hit Game Week 30 and wildcard. I probably would have Gvardiol on a free hit as well. On a wild card, should I say. I probably would have Munoz on a wild card as well. I probably would have David Raya on a wild card as well. Potentially Justin Kluivert, definitely Salah as well. And I definitely would have Alexander Isak. He would be on a wild card, but also on a free hit. Again, he obviously returned in the cup final. Obviously that didn't count, but obviously that's still form. And his form past the new year has been splendid for Newcastle. It hasn't quite happened potentially in the league in recent weeks. Obviously West Ham he did blank, but the week before that I believe he scored 2 goals. So yeah, he's not been on unbelievable form, and I don't think Brentford's the greatest fixture in the world. But I think you've got to have Alexander Isak. I think that the sort of Geordie crowd are ready to celebrate with the team sort of at the weekend, not on the weekend, should I say, next week, obviously in the league. I think they'll be ready to go, and I think that atmosphere will be absolutely fantastic at Newcastle. I do expect Newcastle to win that game, and I think if you think Newcastle are going to win, you probably expect Alexander Isak to get on the score sheet, at least to get some attacking returns. I think he is a really good option, and I think probably a must. If you were going to downgrade it, again, if you didn't quite have the money, I think potentially moving Mateta down to a João Pedro could be an option. I don't particularly love it, and I think I would try, if you can, to downgrade other positions. But if you had to do that, I think Mateta down to João Pedro isn't the end of the world. I would try to keep Alexander Isak, but again, you could technically, if you really can't afford and you're really struggling, you could downgrade Isak and then have Mateta, and then obviously downgrade Isak to a João Pedro. I don't hate that. But for me, Isak is probably a must this week. I think he's one of the most important players potentially in the whole team, so maybe don't downgrade him. And finally, for me, the best captains this week, I will be captaining him. I do have him actually in my team right now, as you can see, obviously, with him not having the sort of transfer icon, would be Erling Haaland. I would captain him this week. Now, this is down to a few things. I think the Everton fixture for Salah is really difficult. I don't think that's quite as good as people are potentially making out. Everton are a really good run right now. They will want to upset the apple cart again by getting something, which obviously they did in the home tie recently at Goodison Park. Park, the last Goodison Park Merseyside derby. They did get something in a 2-2 draw, and I do think that that will be a tricky game for Salah. I don't think that's going to be walking back. It's obviously also a Merseyside derby. I also think Liverpool haven't been playing unbelievably well right now. They're still picking up results. They obviously beat Southampton, which I think a lot of us obviously expected would have happened, but they did. So they are getting the results, and I do think they will beat Everton. But I just think when I look at who's got the small upside in terms of a fixture, Salah versus Everton or Haaland versus Leicester, I just like that Leicester fixture much more. Yes, Salah's been in much better form than Haaland, and potentially this is a bit of a punt, but if you're looking at a punt, Savinho I think is a really nice punt, and I actually think potentially Haaland as the captain is a nice punt and something you can do this week. So yeah, I think if I was going to captain, obviously Haaland, I think obviously the standouts are Haaland and Salah quite comfortably, but it would be Haaland just for that, because I just think that fixture offers much more upside that potentially the Everton fixture doesn't quite offer. So yeah, that would be my game week 30 free hit draft. I think obviously a free hit could be beneficial. A lot of people in 34 as well, so I'll potentially do another one there. But I do think this week, I think that you could potentially look at a free hit if your team, a lot of people obviously won't need a free hit in game week 30, but I think it's interesting to look at because potentially this could be a tops picks video as well. I mean for game week 30, But yeah, I hope you've enjoyed the video. Slightly shorter one than Fantasy Football Scout usually do. But I do think hopefully you've enjoyed it regardless. And yeah, I shall see you on the next one, potentially, if I'm on it, which I don't think I am. But yeah, I shall see you later. Thanks all for watching. As I said at the start, if you could drop a like, subscribe, all that good stuff, it really helps the channel and helps me keep creating these videos. So yeah, thanks all for watching, and I will catch you on the next one. Bye for now, everybody.